Hello everyone, thanks for tuning into Sin's Workshop. You're gonna have to forgive me. Lighting's not super great because it is thundering and stormy out, and I have as many lights as I can on right now. And I also have a cold, so yeah. Bear with me. Today we are going to be reviewing Girl Dinner by Olivia Blake, and if you watched my wrap up, you already know that I loved this book. First of all, this is just a dissertation on feminism. Like, a couple chapters into this book, I was like, this is just a dissertation on feminism. The different types of feminism, and because there are different types of feminism, let's be real. There's I don't even know the words for it. You have feminism, and then you have the feminism version that likes to bring down other women, and there are so many different forms of feminism that this book explores pretty much as many forms as possible. The very range and spectrum of what it means to be a woman and the identity of a woman, and in 2 stages of her life. So you have, our 2 main characters, one of which is a sorority girl, or she's about to be a sorority girl. She's a sophomore, and she's rushing, and she's doing it because, she's looking for that sense of community. She's looking for that sisterhood that she doesn't really feel like she has normally. She feels like women, as a colored woman, because she is a colored young woman, and she is also queer, she feels like she doesn't have a community that lifts her up and, just kind of loves her for who she is. So she is looking and she's seeking for that community, and enter in a sorority, right? Sorority is not all she thought it was. She does see some of the underhandedness. She does see some of the secrecy, but she still is finding that sense of community and that sense of camaraderie and even some romance in the actual, story. She just so desperately wants that sense of community, and it's really relatable. That's one thing I will say about both of the story arcs. It is very relatable because I'm just like, wow, when I was in college, even in high school, I think a lot of young people, regardless of their gender or sexual orientation, are seeking that sense. Even nowadays, I feel like I have finally found my community, and I'm in my 30s now. I'm 34. I just turned 34. Yay! And I feel like I finally found my community, small little knit group. I call them my found family. I feel like, wow, I have finally found, my people outside of my family, outside of my husband and my 2 kids, because I do have an identity outside of being a wife and mother, which we're going to talk about in a little bit because that is what the second arc of the story is about. But I feel like we as a people are always kind of trying to find our community and our sisterhood and, basically our hashtag found family, right? And to me, that was very relatable. I totally understood where this young adult was coming from. I'm like, wow, I've been there. I have felt that. You definitely relate to her. As for the second arc of the story, like I said, our second POV of the book, she is a new mom. She is an adjunct professor, and, she's married with a husband, and she is trying to be like the good wife and the good mother, She feels like she's failing all the time. And I think any parent, again, you don't have to be a mother, you don't have to be a father, I think just any parent often questions wow, am I doing this right? Am I a good parent? And I often say to myself, I'm just when all of my, coworkers are your kids are so good, And every time I get compliments from random strangers for my kids being very polite, I'm just like, yeah, I don't know what I'm doing, but clearly I'm doing something right. You know, I think all the time we're always just kind of like second guessing our behavior, like, oh my God. And that is exactly what she's doing. She's second guessing her behavior as a mom. She's like, am I doing the right thing going back to work and putting my daughter in the daycare? Does she feel abandoned? Am I doing the right thing? Why won't my daughter eat? Does my daughter not love me? Am I not feeding her the right foods? I don't know what's going on. You totally get her. You totally get her. And then she meets her own little community of women who are just in the same boat. They're all moms. They're all working moms. They're all very successful. And so she's like, how do you do it? How do you reaffirm yourself? You know, how do you refine your identity outside of just being a mom and a wife? And then as the story progresses, you're seeing, because they do talk a lot about womanhood and what it means to be a woman and how society portrays women and what society expects from women, but how that shifts and changes. And then you meet Caroline, and then there's this discourse of like, oh, well, you're the country wife on Instagram and you're perpetrating this Republic ideal that woman should just, you know, be a housewife and cook and clean and wait for the husband. And then she throws it back at them and she's like, wait, but I'm profiting over it. It is my income. I'm leaning into a culture and I'm profiting off of it. I'm working for myself and I am being an entrepreneur. And everyone just clashes back. They're just like, oh, but you're perpetrating this belief. She's like, what I do makes me happy. And then, you know, there's a discourse in the book itself. And it's really, really quite fascinating to read. And that's why I say this book is pretty much a dissertation on feminism. Because if a woman is happy and is making a name for herself in some way, why does another woman have to put her down for it just because their ideas of feminism clash? Instead of, you know, clashing and arguing and trying to tear each other down, instead they should lift each other up. You know, they should be that sisterhood and lift each other up. I really love this book. 5 stars, easily 5 stars. It is rather engaging. You know, it is thoughtful. It is provocative. It is definitely a book you can read for a book club, and you will have so many interesting discussions because the characters themselves are having those same discussions in the book, and it puts a lot of things in perspective. You don't have to agree with all of it. You know, there are times where I wish, you know, there are times where I'm just like, wow, I wish I was just a housewife and I could just stay home and cook, because I love to cook and clean, because I actually do love cleaning, and work from home and have more time to read and write and, you know, devote more time to my blogging and my vlogging and my podcasting. You know, I do sometimes wish I were a housewife because I feel like that would allow me to explore some of my own passions. But then on the other spectrum, I'm just like, no, I would go batshit crazy if I were just at home all day. I know me well enough to know, like, I would be okay doing that for like a week. And then I would be like, can I come back to work now? Can I like do my job? Because I also love my job. So it's just, but even though my job sometimes like drives me crazy and leaves me exhausted, I still love going to work every day. And you know, I'm a bookseller. I shelve books. I have book discussions. I host book clubs. It's fun. It's me. It's the things I love to do. So yeah, I think that this book is, like I said, it's really thoughtful. It's very provocative. It makes you think. It puts things in perspective. And it's so incredibly, hugely relatable. Like hands down, 100%. This book is so relatable. I loved it. Oh, and you know, the best part is the sorority. Yeah, they're cannibals. They eat the patriarchy. Apparently, eating the patriarchy gives them great health benefits. It's great. It's great. I love Olivia Blake's writing style. You know, I love her academic sense of writing. I think she's just brilliant. And I think Girl Dinner is absolutely brilliant. So yes, add this to your TBR and pick it up. You will not regret it. I've already recommended the book to 5 people, and I'm like, you need to read this book. It hasn't come out yet, but you need to read this book when it comes out. And they're like, okay. So yeah, thank you all for tuning in. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, and share with all your book loving friends. I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day, and as always, happy reading.